Hello and welcome to another Offseason Outlook episode of the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin. How are you?
That's my dad, episode 3 of the day of possibly 8. We'll see how far we go. But we're doing the offseason outlook of each MLB division. We've done AL East, we've done AL Central, and now on to the AL West where we can complete the AL and be on to the NL. If you're just watching this video, we do a deep dive into the losses and needs of each team entering the offseason. And sometimes we cover our additions that have already happened, Dad. So we're going to start with the Angels because they're the most active team so far this offseason. It's still early. And I've never worn an Angels shirt on this podcast. So LA fans, as soon as Ohtani leaves, I'll get a shirt. Don't worry, it's Garrett Anderson on the back. Your team is reeling, I think, still from losing Ohtani last year. You had a very rough season as well.
They almost lost 100 games.
Yeah, you lost more than I thought. I think I took your over, and I should have not done that.
Yeah.
Let's go into the Angels. You didn't lose all that much. You traded Griffin Canning, who eventually the Braves non-tendered anyways. So you got Jorge Soler out of that because you were willing to pay that contract. You lost Adam Simber and Jake Marisnick. Not terrible losses. No one's really going to miss those guys. And you've already also added Travis d'Arnaud. And Kyle Hendricks and Yusei Kikuchi. 4 people have been added to your roster that were not even on your 2024 last game of the season. So good for you for being active. I just don't think it's enough yet. Dad, let's talk about the Angels.
You know what? I'm impressed by their urgency to get things done. Signing those 2 pitchers are a step in the right direction. I don't know what Hendricks has left in the tank, but again, it's a veteran presence on the mound. He might help the younger players, get better prepared and all that stuff. But I think this offseason, the Angels are going to be extremely active. This is just the first few steps. The Dodgers are smoking them in the marketability in LA and everything else. So I think the Angels have said, hey, we need to kick up our star potential so people come out to the ballpark. Trout's not enough. They got to do more. They do have many holes, but I think they're going to try to make a leap into getting, around 3rd or 4th place. I think they'll be one of the more active teams in baseball this offseason.
I love how we already have a disagreement. At both the last podcasts we've done, it just seemed to be the last team we talked about, the Jays and the White Sox and what they were going to do. We're going to lead off with a difference. I have them being done now. I have them being done by Thanksgiving. Maybe they add like a bullpen piece or 2, nothing that's game changing. I think they kind of have a set rotation with Anderson, Kikuchi, Soriano, Detmers, and Hendricks. I don't know if that's the final order. I'm just guessing here, folks. They could trade Joe Adele maybe or Mickey Moniak, or they could just run with 4 outfielders in Soler. They have 2 catchers. I don't think anyone wants Rendon. They could upgrade at second. I just think they're kind of done. If I'm wrong, that's great, but I don't see them being competitive in the West next year at all. I know they were sort of rumored to recently be up for sale, and they weren't up for sale. I don't think there's a lot of positive vibes coming out of LA, Anaheim section. But we'll see. Tell me why you think they're going to be active in a positive way, or active like trading Trout.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Unbelievable. Is this the offseason that they trade Mike? You put him in Philadelphia, you got something. And he would love to go back to the East Coast. I think this might be the offseason that Mike gets traded. He's been injured, and he's such, he's a potential Hall of Famer and everything else.
Not potential first ballot.
Okay.
He could retire today.
Okay. But I just think that they are going to be looking to move up in the standings. They don't want to be, the Athletics beat them to last place. So I think the ownership is getting to be active. I think they need Soler is a DH. I don't think his outfield days are probably pretty much over. So they could use some depth everywhere. And I'm thinking, they could probably, get some bullpen help along the way. But I just think they don't have a great minor league system. They're really looking to add pieces, a lot of 1-year contracts. I think they're going to, again, along the way, not make major moves outside of Trout, but they're going to add to that squad and be 10 new players next year. So I really think this is a year that Mike gets traded.
I'm very curious to find out which team that I have doing a lot of moves that you're like nothing, because you just have roster changes on roster changes so far in MLB.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really active year.
I hope it is. It's always fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's been a very slow November, and we're just about to be done with November. But yeah, I don't see this team changing much more.
I'm predicting the winter meetings will have more activity than the last 5 years.
Okay. I hope it happens for you, buddy. Yeah, I don't have any of the top 50 free agents going to any of the active ones going to the Angels after they kind of got Kikuchi.
That was a good acquisition.
I think they paid too much for him, but
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah,
They had to get maybe a Japanese replacement to Ohtani. No, I'm serious. Like,
well,
they were losing Japanese fans in LA to Dodgers.
That's a brilliant point.
Yeah.
You're
I
right.
thought it was extremely strategic.
Yeah,
I thought they were paying for that. They were paying for the Asian fan, not just the player.
yeah, very good. Good.
Let's go to Texas, Dad.
Sure.
Texas. Oh, I put my hands in my head here.
Not a good year.
So former World Series champs just shit the bed and don't even make the playoffs. That doesn't happen too often. Although it feels like if you're a first-time winner, you do that. We think Florida Marlins 97 to 98. We think Washington Nationals 2019 to 2020. We think Texas Rangers 2023, now 2024. They have talent. Everyone was, from last year's World Series, everyone was loving on Evan Carter. From spring training, everyone was loving on Wyatt Langford. And then they already have Seager and Simeon and Garcia. Everyone kind of either got injured or didn't perform to their full abilities this year, including the rookie breakouts that didn't really break out. Their rotation had some, obviously they didn't get really anything from DeGrom. They just kind of lost. They just kind of lost direction. They lost kind of their way.
I think they got in a rut as they came out of the spring training, and they never recovered. And I think Seager and Carter were the big reasons. Just neither one had good years. I know Carter was hurt a good bit. It seemed like they never got in sync offensively, and their pitching seemed to go up and down. I just think it was one of those things. It's Murphy's Law. What could have went wrong did go wrong.
They are losing a ton of players. Max Scherzer, Andrew Heaney, Nathan Eovaldi, Kirby Yates, Jose Leclerc, Jose Urena. So that's 3 starters, 3 relievers.
Yeah.
Travis Jankowski, Carson Kelly, Andrew Chafin, David Robertson. More relievers in the back end.
Yeah.
They've spent a lot, Dad, to get to that World Series year. They have their ring. I don't know if they push that number anymore. It feels silly to not add to this team with Seager, Simeon, and DeGrom. I mean, that's got to be $100 million right there, or at least close to it. And then obviously everyone else, either that's arbitration or making a little bit more money. If Leiter and Kumar Rocker click, they have a pretty good rotation if it's healthy. But Molly and DeGrom being healthy is kind of rare. So I think they definitely need some rotation additions. They've been on record they want to add one of Heaney or Eovaldi. Kind of interesting. They're not trying to add both. I don't know if that's a money thing. Maybe that's a relationship thing. And their back end of the bullpen is really gone. So they really need 8th, 9th inning guys. Their offense, in my opinion, is fine. I mean, maybe bench or like some depth there, but mostly it's the pitching. Tavares, I don't think is who I would choose as a center fielder. If they want to upgrade, they can. They have a decent prospect that I think they should trade, and I don't know what they could get for him. Depends like who they trade with. But Justin Foscue is like a second baseman, third baseman. They don't really need an infielder with how they're currently stacked up. And more, specifically, Josh Smith and Josh Jung both can't play third base. So either one of them's DHing, Wyatt Langford's got to go in the outfield. Does Carter, Garcia have center field abilities in them? There's no place for this Foscue guy, and he is ready. So if they can get a reliever from him, I think that's a possibility. I don't know if they would have to package other things else. I look at eventually we'll talk about the St. Louis Cardinals and Jordan Helsley. That could be something. Obviously, they have plenty of infielders in St. Louis, but takes takes that person off the roster. It adds a hole. Again, I just see some trades looming with this team if they can't necessarily afford to spend more money, or some combo of some minor signings like a Heaney or Eovaldi, and plus some trades to fill in the holes of the bullpen.
I think they have money. Will they spend money? I worry about the bullpen more than anything else because they lost the majority of their bullpen, and there's really some good relievers that are leaving. I think we saw Haney pitch this year, a nice little left-handed starter that's going to end up somewhere. I just think that the Rangers are depleted right now. They got to do a lot of things, get back to even 500. This is going to be a heck of an offseason for them. It's either going to go 100 miles an hour, and if they stay status quo and just get middle-of-the-road replacements, they're going to end up, being, 78 and 84 again. This is a key offseason for the Rangers.
I think Pete Fairbanks is another option for Rays and Rangers to trade for each other. I think Brandon Lowe, I'll never get it right. Nate Lowe, Brandon Lowe, Josh Lowe. I mean, there's too many people with similar names and different pronunciations that I think they could get rid of Fairbanks' salary because we know the Rays don't like to spend, and if they trade Brandon, then
he's
they
a
have
great reliever.
Then Foscue makes sense at second.
Yeah.
So. Again, it's just a matter of making the moves to see it happen. I would like to see this team competitive because I think it's kind of fun to watch the Astros and the Rangers kind of battle out for Texas, and Seattle being like, we only want to win 54% of our games. So yeah, I'm rooting for the Rangers and Astros in 2025. I would like to see a bounce back year for Texas in that brand new stadium. And then obviously we'll talk about the Astros shortly, but they have some holes too.
I just think that the Rangers have to decide. We're world champs. We need to get back to that level and make the investment. It's going to take some work.
I think it'll be worth it. Dad, let's talk about Houston. They've already lost Yusei Kikuchi. He's gone. He's in division, and I know he was only there for a couple months anyways. But some big names are leaving Houston. Alex Bregman, one of the former last names of the 2017 team. Justin Verlander, Hector Neris, who's kind of always on again, off again dating Houston. Jason Harewood, who was a good little midseason pickup. Kendall Graveman and Jose Urquidy are all off the team. Their payroll is still pretty high because they have people like Altuve and Tucker and Alvarez and all their pitchers.
Yeah.
They're crazy, very wealthy bullpen as well. And they have holes at first base, third base, I would argue left field and center. Chas McCormick had a pretty bad year. Dubon and Myers were replaceable at best. And possibly one extra starter would be really good. If they don't get a starter this offseason, I think they'll trade for a mid-season. Again, Christian Javier should be out, if not all of the year, majority of the year. Framber's back. Luis Garcia's back. Blanco maybe has a similar year. If he does, that's great. Hunter Brown. McCullers hopefully is healthy. Spencer Arrighetti. I know that's 6, but given the track record of Houston, 1 or 2 of those players will get injured. My money's on McCullers. So I think having one more starter makes some sense, but you got to put people at the corners first. And then kind of here's what's left money-wise for your additional pitcher.
And I think the 2 people on the corners have to have power.
They're corner positions.
Correct. And I'm thinking along the way, those are vital to get that lineup popping again. Back in the heyday, Houston used to score, 5 to 8 runs a game. They lose Bregman. You're like, okay, that's a big bat out of the lineup. I'm not sure he's coming back to Houston. I think he's gone. He's gone somewhere. Could be a good fit with a lot of teams. But I think the Astros really need to do their homework and resupply the offense to keep the lofty status in the West and everything else. So they got some work to do as well.
First time in 7 years that the Astros were not in the ALCS. And I also just keep in mind how they spend is Kyle Tucker is a free agent next offseason. So if they want to keep him, which I think they should, then keeping enough money to extend him for years and years also should impact this offseason. Kind of when they were looking at how Altuve, Bregman, and Tucker were all year after year free agents, they've already extended Altuve. He'll be an Astro for life at this point. I think they had extended him before he hit free agency, so I think I'm with you that Bregman's not coming back, but I think they should extend Tucker. Again, I don't think they were going to keep all three. You had to keep two.
Yeah, I think he's probably the future of the franchise, and he's just a steady. You don't read about him, but he's a steady guy. 25 to 30, great defense, gets on base, valuable part of that organization.
New dad, I believe, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how this team attacks first base, because they're still spending like $20 million on a released first baseman named Jose Abreu. So I don't know if they even try to sign a free agent. I hear arguments both ways where there's a lot of first basemen available this offseason, but they tried that. Let's sign a veteran first baseman, and it really didn't work out for us. So maybe they look at trade options and see what happens. Dad, we have two teams left. Do you want to go the A's? Can't call them Oakland anymore. Or do you want to go all the way to the Pacific Northwest of Seattle?
Let's go to the Athletics.
Okay, I think they're just the A's, by the way. I don't even know if they're the Athletics.
Yeah, they're just using Sacramento.
Yes, the Sacramento A's. They lost a lot of pitching, Dad. Danny Jimenez, Alex Wood, Ross Stripling, T.J. McFarland, Scott Alexander, Trevor Gott, and one infielder, Abraham Toro. And, oh, by the way, they lost the Coliseum.
Yeah. And, I talked to somebody from Oakland. I think it was at the event that we were.
Yeah.
And he said that probably team will never go back to Oakland.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, so it's kind of like history was made this year, and that's a team that won't have Major League Baseball.
Athletics are supposed to be very, maneuverable. So you go from, the Philadelphia Athletics, you go to Kansas City, go to Oakland, go to Las Vegas. You just keep moving around. We'll move around. They're the Ben Zobrist of the MLB teams. They're athletic. My note for them, Dad, is spend some money.
Yeah.
Prove to some fans wherever they're traveling, whether it's Sacramento, whether it will be Vegas, that here's someone. Maybe it's extending Rooker. I don't know. Here's someone you can look for years. Because like the Orioles, they don't really have commitments. They don't owe anybody any money. I think
paying rent.
Lawrence Butler, Rooker, Langoliers, Zach Geloff, they're all great. They got a rookie shortstop with last name Wilson that I had some, Mason Miller had a breakout year. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of extendable candidates. I think they really need help with the rotation. Gone are the years of Mulder and Hudson and Zito.
Yeah.
I said if they were going to spend money on anyone, I actually identified John Means as such a perfect candidate for Oakland. Sorry, the A's. As someone, or Anthony DeSclafani, where they have injury history, but they could bounce back and be really strong for this team and probably cheap. I looked at Cal Quantrill and Griffin Canning as some non-tender candidates for this team. Jose Urquidy, if they want to stay in division. Michael Soroka, or even Matthew Boyd, depending how much money they want to spend. But I really like Means and DeSclafani as... Could they win 12 games for this team? And, could they pitch 12 games?
With a lot of these injured guys, they sign a 2-year deal.
Sure.
The first year is not a whole lot of money, just get them rehabbed, and the second year they come back strong.
And perfect for the A's, because then you can trade them if you really want to.
And then you can make a splash in Vegas when you move to Vegas.
Sure.
But, you have to give them credit. They were a 100-game loser last year. They got 69 and 83. That's a nice improvement for a team that had a lot of young talent.
Yeah.
You got to give them, a little credit for getting into fourth place and playing the way they did. They didn't make the big trades at the deadline people thought they would, especially with Miller and everything. So they may be looking for, the build for the future. We'll find out. I think you're correct. I think a lot of minor moves and try to get to the 75-win plateau and then kind of go there and then build for the future. I think the move to Vegas will be great for him.
I don't see a lot of trades for this team.
Yeah.
I don't see them dangling Miller, Butler, Zach Geloff, Rooker, anything like that. This offseason, I think it'll just be signings, and they'll just kind of, roll the ball back out there and hope for 5 more, 6 more wins each year.
Yeah. Again, with Sacramento, it's only going to hold so many people. The revenue won't be as much. Well, it didn't have much in Oakland. But again, you got to,
they'll actually average the same amount of attendance both games.
But you know what? You're probably correct. But you hope that people in Sacramento embrace them and they get to see Major League Baseball.
Yeah. I'm hopeful this team keeps improving and doesn't, turn everybody around and trade them again and just keeps
recycle.
They won't be the worst team in baseball. They won't be the second worst team in baseball. So that's positive, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Dad, let's close out our AL offseason outlook with Seattle, the 54% winning team.
Who had the most disappointing year, Seattle or Minnesota?
I would say with expectations, Seattle. With how it ended, Minnesota.
Okay.
Because Minnesota had some hope and they really blew it.
Yeah.
And Seattle also added mid-year. I think the Twins added like one person, if that.
And they fired a manager in August.
So,
which is hard to believe. A lot of teams don't do that.
Who?
Service.
Oh, Mariners. I thought you said
no.
Fidelli's beloved in Minnesota.
No. Mariners.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean that took a little bit of chutzpah.
Sorry, I was like, ooh, what?
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're totally fine. I'm very excited to see a full year of Randy Arozarena out in Seattle. We don't really know who that is. I mean, Randy Arozarena has had legendary 2020 COVID postseason numbers. Bad years, hit like a $188 one year, so I don't know where that Randy lands. Remember my joke about Randy Land? Okay, that's a couple episodes ago. Cal Raleigh is turning out to be one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball. Julio may not be that comparison to Ken Griffey Jr. everyone thought he was.
They can't figure that out either. You know,
he just doesn't start the year off well. He starts the year off pretty slow. He's kind of like a Blake Snell. Something about Blake Snell's from Seattle doesn't start the year that well. Julio,
I think he got hurt a little bit too, didn't he, this year?
I don't know about that. At least it wasn't serious.
Okay.
The losses, Dad, a lot of relievers. JT Chagua, Austin Voth, Yimi Garcia, some infielders or DHs, Josh Rojas, Jorge Polanco, and Justin Turner. This team doesn't spend a lot of money. They are typically active with trades. I already have some trade proposals, Dad, but before I get into that, you want to identify any needs? You want to look at more notes?
You know what? I got the infield being the key component of getting some help, first base, second base, third base.
Okay, that's the whole infield, basically.
Yeah. I keep reading that they're after a solid second baseman. Nico Horner has come up in conversations repeatedly. Apparently, Mariners have a little bit of depth in pitching to trade, but apparently they need help within the majority of the infield. They have a decent minor league system. They can trade off of that. But they're a team that I think the fans were expecting them to really contend. And I think at one point they were in first place this year.
Sure, I believe that.
And then all of a sudden that didn't happen, and they started sinking, and then boom, they got out of the playoffs, which was highly disappointing.
Oh, they definitely were, because Houston started off really slow too.
Yeah. So I think that was probably the main reason Service got fired, where they saw the decline of the Mariners. I just think that's another team that's going to be active, and they're going to try to shore up some positions. They did make some midseason trades. I just think that they want first place, and it's obtainable if they make the right moves. But I think second base is the key.
They really don't have a second baseman or third baseman.
Yeah.
Moore can kind of play either. I think he's kind of utility. I think Brooks Raley might end up being a first baseman. He is kind of more outfielder vibe / DH vibes, but they kind of have a logjam at both positions. Mitch Garver did not turn out to be the hitter they thought he was. Funny, Mitch Haniger, the Mitch is at DH. Both below average hitters. For some reason, they extended Robles, and he made him like a right fielder, Victor Robles, i.e., hopefully it pans out for you, not just a small sample size. But Brooks Raley would have been a really good right fielder or a left fielder, depending where Randy wanted to play. So he kind of has to either learn first base, third base, or second base to have his bat in that lineup. I see the rotation as a strength, but they're going to have to deal from a strength to balance things out. They're not going to spend a lot of money. So kind of funny, they're looking at either the top of the rotation or the bottom of the rotation. So the bottom of the rotation would be Emerson Hancock. And some of those options, I would think, Michael Massey, since he just got displaced at Kansas City. And Michael Massey could be a good second baseman for Seattle. Again, if Tampa Bay wants to get rid of Brandon Lau, I keep saying this guy's name, let's give more pitching to Tampa Bay. They love it. They'll figure it out. And I also thought that
Every game 2-1.
I thought Ramon Urias from the Orioles could also be a pretty good. They're going to have to supplement that a little bit more to get Emerson Hancock, but he has star potential. Or it's the opposite, where you take the top of the rotation because Luis Castillo is getting paid the most by Seattle, and they want to get out of that contract, very similar to how they got out of Robbie Reyes last year. So I think you would have to be the Mets. You would have to be the Yankees are kind of tapped financially. You have to be the Red Sox, and the Red Sox really don't want another righty. Maybe the Nats. Like you have to be looking, or even the Orioles, I guess. You would have to be looking for an ace level player and be able to pay him, and offer up second baseman, shortstops, third baseman. So I really think if we're looking at the Orioles, Ramon Urias, Jorge Mateo, and Ryan Mountcastle, almost like 3 infielders, plug all those holes for Luis Castillo.
Wow.
So I think something like that gets a deal done, even though Castillo is good. The Mariners have openly tried to shop him, so I think that hurts his trade value a little bit. And then it plugs holes and gives something. I don't know if they'll get like a Jordan Westburg type of rookie. I think that would be great, but I don't think the Orioles are willing to give up Westburg for Castillo after giving up 2 players for a 2-9 guy last year.
The Orioles' decline was at the same time that Westburg was hurt.
Yep.
So
I agree.
If you really look at what happened to the Orioles and their decline, Westburg was hurt for 4 of those weeks. Mm-hmm. So I think he's a cog of that lineup, and I think they missed him terribly during that stretch.
Mm-hmm. If the Royals wanted to make a splash, I mean, that's something they could also do. Again, Michael Massey, they can add, if that's Garcia, to that, and they can end up signing a third baseman. It'll be kind of fun to watch if Hancock or Castillo goes. I don't think you should have a 6-man rotation and claim, we don't have that much money to spend. Well, then trade one of those guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that happening. Castillo for Brady House, straight up. Who says no? The Nats or the Mariners? Could be fun.
Yeah, and that GM in Seattle loves to trade.
He does, and that's how he. Yeah, There's a lot of Arenado rumors that he's leaving St. Louis. Obviously, that would not be a Castillo for Arenado. That would be like a Hancock and some other rookies for Arenado.
Apparently, he's willing to go to first base.
In theory, they need a first or third baseman in Seattle. But probably I would keep the Gold Glove winner at third base.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Even if he loses a step, he's still
above average.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of those names will be a really fun name to watch or a fun trade to watch develop. I think that could be a winter meeting activity. Seattle does seem to be a little bit more active in December than any other month trade-wise. So that concludes the AL West ad. Any thoughts about the division as a whole? Any kind of crazy shakeups?
You know what? It's competitive. The key to that division is how active the Rangers are going to be, try to get back to first place, or even a wild card, I should say. But I think, again, you're going to have teams battling that because they were close in first, second, and third. A couple of players will make all the difference in the world. So I just think it's going to be a lot of players going back and forth. It's going to be an exciting offseason that, will start here in about a week, and it's full time till spring training.
I think it could be a very active division. You think the Angels are going to be active. I would say watching how active the Mariners will be fun.
Yeah. And
how much money the Rangers and Astros are willing to spend at their holes will be also kind of interesting to watch. The A's won't be an interesting storyline. Don't read too much about those. And personally, I don't think the Angels will have much more to talk about now. They got your attention now, but I think that's going to be it. Dad, we're going to probably take a lunch break for those at home, and then jump back into the NL offseason outlook. So if you're an NL fan, those will be coming shortly.
Thank you for watching.
Again, plug in every episode until I lose my mind saying it. At Pastime Podcast _ on Twitter. Twitter, Instagram. Hey, see, I'm losing it already. And then the Father and Son Pastime Podcast on YouTube, which is what you're watching right now, and Facebook. Like, comment, and subscribe.